Hello and welcome to this tutorial of how to make a tea towel with the SameYou logo on. My name is Stefan and I am the voice and face behind Braincrafts. Today, for this pattern, we will be using a 4mm crochet hook. I will be using an 8/8 cotton yarn. Okay, so the width of my entire tea towel is going to be 35 centimeters. I'm going to take this end piece and I'm going to measure the 35 centimeters. And we're going to do that 3 times. That's 1, 2, and 3 times. So this, where it is 3 times, is now my starting point. So I'm going to use this and I'm going to make my slip knot first. So I'm still holding on. I have the loose end, the end with the at the end of the yarn between my pinky and my ring finger. I'm wrapping it around my index and middle finger in the cross, like so, flipping it over, going under the first and grabbing my yarn, holding on to it up there, and then just letting everything go and tightening the knot. So now the knot is taut, and the loose end of my yarn is going to be hanging down low, and my working yarn is going to be up here like before. So grabbing my working yarn up here and my loose end with my thumb here. And this is where we need to be paying a little bit of attention, because this, the way I move my needle, I'm gonna move it around the loose end like so, and then I'll grab on to my working end. And this first stitch is a little bit tricky, but holding on to the knot, I'm gonna pull it through both loops like this. So the first one is a little bit tricky, but don't give up. If it messes up, just try again. So that's one. So I'm gonna repeat this process. So I'm gonna have my loose end hanging down, take my hook around it like so, grab the yarn up there, and here I'm holding on to the knot. And now it gets easier because now I have something to hold on to. See there? So again, my loose end, I wrap it around. I always use my hook to wrap around. So wrap around that so it's hanging over. I like to tighten it a little bit, but not too much. And then my hook grabs the yarn over there. And I'm going to be moving a little bit faster now. So with my hook, grabbing the loose end first, wrapping it around, and grabbing my working yarn, pulling it through. So loose end, working yarn, over, pull through. My loose end, working yarn, and pull through. "35 centimeters. I am at the end of my cord, and I'm going to start out my first row. Before that, I'll just count out that I have more than the needed 40 chains for the pattern. So before we get started, I'll just count that out. The last chain of the row is what we call it turning chain. So even though I've made this cord, I'm going to make just one chain. I'm going to let this loose end hang and pick up my working yarn. So I'm chaining one, which means I'm going to grab my yarn and just pull it through. So this last chain out here is my turning chain. I'm going to be turning my work around. I'm going to be working towards my left. So we're always working from right to left with crochet. And I'm going to be doing the elongated double crochet. But in the pattern, to give it a little bit of texture, we're going to be not working in both of the loops up here. We're going to be working in only the back loops. So when we're looking at a stitch, we've got two loops. And normally we'll be sticking our hook through both loops. And we will in the end. So the first one and the last one will be going through both loops. This is just something I've learned to make things easier. But otherwise, we're going to be working in only the back loops every time. So firstly, I'm going to do my first elongated double crochet. And like I said, the first one and the last one is going to be through both loops. So I'm on the hook here. My hook through both loops, so under both loops here, yeah. And we pick up the yarn and pull it through. And now we have two loops on. Grab my yarn, pull it through the first loop. Grab my yarn and pull it through both loops. This was the first one, first of the row. Now I'm going to continue on, and here I'm going to show you how to do the back loop only. Right, so instead of going through both loops, no, we don't want that. We want only the back loop here. So go through the back loop, grab your yarn, pull through, and we're doing the elongated. So pull through one first, and then we grab the yarn and pull through both. Yeah, that was our second elongated double crochet. So back loop, under the back loop, grab the yarn and pull through. Right? Grab the yarn through the first one, grab the yarn through both. Yes, and I'm going to show another one. Through the back loop, grab the yarn, grab the yarn there, through one loop, grab the yarn through both loops. And this I'm going to be doing all the way down. And then I've got two more. So one more in the back loop only. Through the first, through both. And then the last one here, I am going through both loops. Actually, that's not the last one I can see. Sorry. Sometimes the first ones get a little bit, again, I don't know the English word. It gets a bit small and hard to see. But the last stitch down here. And sometimes if it's hard to get the crochet hook through, I actually just turn it around and use the hook to get under the yarn this way. So now I'm through both loops. It's a final stitch through both loops. Pulling my yarn through the first, and through both. So this is the first row. Now to turn the work and go back the other way, at the end here we do the turning chain. The chain is, sometimes you do 2 chains or 3 or more. That depends on what stitch you're doing next. We're doing a double crochet, so a single turning chain should be enough. It's a bit of a preference thing, but in this pattern we're doing 1. So I've done 1 chain. I'm going to turn my work around, put it to the other side, and then I'm remembering that the first and the last stitch is going to be through both loops. So here we're skipping the turning chain. This little turning chain here is going to be skipped, and then I'm going through the next one, grabbing my yarn and making my elongated double crochet. That was the first. So now I'm gonna go through the back loops again and doing back loops only, elongated double crochets. So back loop, grabbing yarn, going through the first loop, going through both. I'm going to slow down here so you guys can see. I have 2 more stitches to go. So back loop only on this one, and like we talked about in the last one, see there's a knot there that kind of shows the end of the row. We're going through both loops, doing the elongated, and there, that's row 2. 1 turning chain, turning my work around so it's this way, and again I'm skipping the first one. I'm going through both loops, making my elongated, and then we're back to back loops only. I've now reached my 5 first rows, and just to show you that I can, or how I see that it is 5 rows, since I'm working both back and forth, there's going to be 2 sides to this. And when I'm working in the back loop only, there's going to be this line here that shows this row. So on this side, I can see 1, 2 rows, and on my other side, it's going to be this line down here. It's going to be 1 row, and then the top row is my final row. So it's 3 rows on this side I can see, and 2 rows over here. So this is 5 rows total. And before I move on to my 6th row, which is where I'm going to start the SameYou text pattern, I have opened Stitch Fiddle, a program that helps me track my progress. In Stitch Fiddle you can activate the thing called Progress Tracker, which helps you track which row you're at and which stitch you've reached in the row. The SameYou text pattern is 40 stitches wide, and my work is 68 stitches wide. This means I'm going to have to do a little bit of math. I want the SameYou text pattern centered, so I'm going to be working the pattern in the middle of my work here. So I need to figure out how far in I need to go before I start the pattern. So since my work is 68 stitches long, I'm going to do the 68 stitches minus 40. Then I've got 28 stitches left. And since I want it centered, I'm gonna divide the 28 stitches by 2, which gives me 14. This means I have to go 14 stitches into my into the next row before I start the pattern. Then I do the pattern, then I do my 14 stitches over here. Now I've reached my 14 stitches, and I'm going to go into the SameYou text pattern and stitch fiddle. And in my first row, I can see I need to do 8 of my background color, 8 stitches with my background color before I do a color change. But I'm only going to do 7. And then the 8th, the final stitch before my color change, is going to be a little bit different. So I'm going to do 7 stitches here, and then I'll walk you through how to change color and how to crochet around the color we're not using. That was 7. So now the next one is my last stitch before I do the color change. So I have my new color yarn. It's going to be this lighter white, and I'm going to leave a small end. The way I do this, I don't leave this end loose when I do my work. Since this tea towel is going to be showing both sides, the back side is going to be pretty as well. So I'm going to leave a short, relatively short tail, just 5 centimeters or so. And then I'm going to crochet around it. I'll show you how. But first, the color change itself. So I'll start out my final stitch the way I usually do. So go under the back loop, bring the yarn around, and now I have, well, 2 moves left, if you call it that. So first, I take my yarn, grab my yarn, and pull it through once. And now I have 1 move left. And the final move is where I want to make my color change. So now I'll just grab this loose end, the yarn here. I'm holding on to both these two and pulling them through here. So this means I'm going to have to tighten the loops a little bit. So now I have the new color here. And I'm going to take my loose end of yarn here and put it down here by my work, on top of it. The yarn I'm not using, the background color here, is also going to be down here with my work. And then I'm going to be grabbing my working yarn, the color I'm working with here. So now I'm just going to crochet like I usually do. So as you can see, there are these two. I'm going to go around those. So in front of them first, I find the back loop, and then I go underneath those two as well. So back loop here, and then underneath the two, the yarn I want to crochet around, I grab the yarn over here, and I pull one through. And then I do my stitches just like I did before. Through one, and through both. So that was 1 stitch. And in stitch fiddle, I can see I need to do 6 stitches with this color now. That was 1. And again, the 6th is where I want to make my color change in my final move. So I'll do 5 first. So 1. 2. And I keep going around the yarn here. So it goes into my work like I showed before. 3. So back loop, under. 4. Back loop, under. 5. And then the next one is the final one with the white. For right now until I do a color change. So I go under, around the 2 yarns, grab the white one there. do the first one with the white, and then I just drop the white one here, and I grab back on hold of my blue yarn over, and pull it through. So now I've got 2 white loose ends. You might only have 1 left now, but I have 2 here. So I'm going to work around this yarn, and I need to do 2 stitches with the blue yarn. So under the back loop, around the 2 white ones, grab it, through one, through both. That was 1. And since I need to do 2, this is the stitch where I'm gonna go back to the white now. So yarn under, the back loop, grab my yarn, pull through, grab my yarn, pull through 1, let go of the blue yarn, and pick up the white yarn again. And there we go. And I'm still going around both of these yarns. So in my stitch fiddle, I can see I need to do 6 white ones now. So going around. And every once in a while, I'm just going to tug on this this loose end here to make sure it's a bit taut. Not pull it really tight, but just tug a little bit on it. And this frayed end here, I'm just going to cut it, or leave it hanging out and then cut it later, so it doesn't interfere or stick out somewhere. And since I've got this, it's in the work all this way, it is secured now. So this end has been secured. And this was my final white on this row. So now I'm just gonna leave my white yarn here and not crochet around it, because when I come back, it's gonna be where it needs to be in the next row. So I'm just gonna finish my row in the very same way I've done every other row. Once I've finished this row, I turn, and in stitch fiddle, I will go to row 2. The only thing to remember here is that I'm working from the other side in stitch fiddle. So instead of working from 1 through 40, I'm going to be working back from 40 through 1, because it's in my even rows that I'm working backwards on the pattern. And on the back side, we're going to be using the same technique with the string, the yarn that we're not working with. So I'm going to be showing you that in just a minute. So now I've finished my row, first row of the pattern, turned my work, and worked back until the pattern starts again. So there's going to be a bit of blue going on until I reach the point where I have to change back to the white. I have made this SameYou text pattern so that almost every row, there's a little bit around the M and the A that's not the same, but otherwise every row will be the same on the way back. This makes it quite a bit easier. So there's only a few places where you need to be well, looking at this, remembering this. Okay, so now I have 1 remaining stitch before I get to the 2 white stitches over here. And as you'll see, the yarn for the white is hanging on the inside here. And we want it to stay on this side, because it is going to be the back side of the tea towel. So we want the front side with the text to be, well, the prettiest. So we'll try to keep the non-working yarn on this backside while crocheting over it. But first, the color change, the final stitch, I do my back loop only, grab the yarn, pull through, and this is where we change back. And this time, instead of just leaving the yarn, I'm gonna pull my working yarn to this side, and then I'll grab my color change and pull it up here. And before I move on, I'm just gonna make sure it's relatively taut. Not I'm gonna tighten it all the way or anything, but just make sure it's relatively taut. Then there's this little on the first flip, and I'm gonna just push it in there and then go to the back. And like I mentioned before, it's gonna be the same on the way back, so this means I'm gonna need 2 stitches here. And I just forgot to yarn around or work around my other yarn, so I'm gonna undo my stitch, take this blue yarn, and remember that I'm working around it. So go under the the blue yarn into the back loop. This can be a little bit tricky, so just take your time. It's not a rush or anything. Then I'm doing my first white stitch, and then I'm doing my second white stitch, and this is the last one. So going around, taking the white yarn, pulling it over here, and grabbing onto my blue yarn and pulling it through. I'm now coming up on my final color change of this row. So putting the white over, and again I'm just going to leave the white yarn here because I'm going to be picking it up in the same place. So I am coming up on the last color change of the U word, on the final U, final letter U. And if you look at stitch fiddle, you will see that there's going to be a gap from this end of the U here to where the E starts in same. This means we're going to have to make a choice of either carrying the yarn for a little bit, for a few stitches, 5 or 6 stitches I think, or we can cut the yarn and restart when we get to the E. I am going to carry the yarn for a little bit, just because I think the fewer ends I'm working with, the easier it is, and the smaller, the less risk there is of the ends unraveling at some point. So this final color change of the U, I'm just, instead of leaving the white yarn at this point, I'm going to carry it for, let's see, 5 stitches. 5, and now I'm going to leave it here. And then when I come back on the next row, I'll just keep it or put it in this one stitch, and the same on the way back. This way it will be ready and not showing on the outside when I get to the point where I'm going to start the E. My first skein of yarn is running out. This is the end here. So I'm going to be attaching a new skein, same color, same background color I was using before. There are probably many ways to do this. I'm going to show you the way I do it, and it's with this knot that I was I remember it from when I was a kid, when I was in the Scouts. And the way I do it is first I tie just a single knot like this. So I still have my two ends here. And then I take, doesn't matter which one I take, but I take this end here and I put it parallel to the other end on this side over here. And then if I, when I cross the other one over and tie a knot out here, before I tighten it, you can see that these two over here are running next to each other. The same is the case on the other side. This means that it's the true knot of this kind. So I'm just going to tighten this, maybe pull it a little further. And this won't come undone. As long as there's a bit of tension on it, it won't come undone. And then when I get to this point with the knot, while crocheting, I just crochet around the ends like I did before. So let's see if I can. Well, I'm coming up on the end here. These little ends, they're fairly short, so I can just cut them. So I am now on row 22, about to finish the last of the white yarn. So I'm going over here to my final stitch, and as before I would change to the blue, but before I do the change I'm going to pull the white one through with me, and then out here I'm going to leave the blue yarn for a second and just with the white yarn do just one single chain here, then I will cut my white yarn, leaving a small, not a long tail, and this white tail I'm going to pull through and tighten it a little bit here. This is going to leave a knot here, so the yarn doesn't unravel while I carry on here. So from here on I will just crochet around the white string, and actually when I'm done with this row I will be done with the SameYou text pattern, and from there on it is just going to be the blue yarn, the background color, back and forth until I have the full length of the tea towel. Therefore I will be measuring every once in a while to see when I reach my goal length, which is around 55 centimeters. You can make the towel, the tea towel, any length you want, but my goal in this pattern is going to be around 55 centimeters. So my work has now reached about 55 centimeters, and I can see when I look at it that this is as long as I think it's gonna need to be. This is one of the beauties about working with a pattern like this. I think you can stop it whenever you feel like it. So if you think it's long enough at 45 or 55 centimeters or 70 centimeters, that's how you do it. That's when you stop. So right now my tea towel is about 40 centimeters wide and about 55 centimeters long. I have 90 rows total, and this is row 91. So the last thing I want to make before I finish off the work is a strap, so I can hang it. I want the strap to span over, I'm thinking 8 stitches here, and I'm gonna make it over 2 rows. So on row 91 here, I'm gonna go in and make the first part of the strap, and then on row 92 I will make the last part of the strap. Since I wanted 8 stitches wide, and I have a total of 68 stitches in the width, when I take 68 and subtract the 8, I have 60 stitches left, and I divide that by 2, which means I have 30 stitches on the right and 30 on the left. So I'm going to go 30 stitches in, and after 30 stitches, and that will be 30 stitches. So the next time I'm going to be working in the row, I'm going to skip 8 stitches here, but first I want to make my strap. So $12, maybe. This is again one of those times where you can just go with the flow, go with what you feel like is right for you. I think 12 here. It's going to be stretching a little bit. So 12 is going to be my lucky number. 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're going into the number 9. Just checking again, it's still okay. So now we're back to the elongated double crochets in the back loop only. So from here on, we're just, this first one can be a little bit tricky. Just finishing the row. I am now on row 92. I am coming back to where I made my chain before for the strap for the top, so we can come in, so we can hang our tea towel. And I'm going to do my last 2 elongated, or my last 2 here, and then for going across the strap, instead of going through the back loop, I'm just going to go around the whole strap. So around the strap, grab the string, and then we do our elongated crochet. So the strap was, my strap was 12 stitches long, so I'm going to try and do 12 stitches around here. So I've made my 12 stitches around the string here. So now I'm just going to go back to the first stitch down here, my final 30, back loop only, and just finishing the row. Now I'm coming up on the end here, and when I have taken or made my final stitch here, going through both loops at the top. So just checking that I'm satisfied with my loop, and I think it looks great here. So now I'm going to take this string here, I'm going to cut off about, maybe 20 centimeters or something like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be too long, but not too short either. And I prefer to make them a little longer, and then I cut them off later. Now for finishing off the project here, to just make the final tie off of the string here, I do first, well, first I will do one chain, and some people will just tell you to do one chain. And that's how I learned it at first, but I have since figured out that if you only do one chain, the knot is going to be, well, it has a tendency to open up. So I always do an extra chain, and then I pull my yarn through. So actually I'll have 2 chains down here, which leads to 2 knots at the end. Then I tighten them, and I try to pull it down a little bit. This might be a little bit fiddlesome, but it's gonna be a nice double knot. This way, when it's a double knot, it won't come undone. So now I have my end tied off. I have my strap up here for hanging the tea towel. I have my text down here. Oh, sorry, that's the back side. So the only thing I need to do now is tie off my remaining ends and cut off like these little ones out here hanging. This has been crocheted around, so this end is just like the final little piece. I can cut it off, it doesn't matter. It will be all right. So I will show you how to weave in your final ends. So for weaving in ends, we're going to need a wool needle. Threading the needle can sometimes be an issue for people. The thing I like to do is put the end of the thread so it just faces out between my fingers, and I actually close it off. Take this end here and slowly push it down over. This way it gets through. Yeah. So our end here, I'm going to weave it in between the stitches that I came from. So just weaving it back and forth. So I'm picking up my end stitches here. I'm just going in through the first under both loops on one side, pulling through, and then the other side. And I do this through both loops for, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 stitches, depending on how much string I have left here, because I do need some string at the end. I think this will suffice, and then I go back, but opposite. So if I do the opposite here, I go through, so it just crisscrosses back and forth underneath here. This way it's gonna hold itself a little bit together. The end here, I did have a starting knot, so even if this were to start to unravel at some point, always just grab a needle and weave it back in. Now I'm out here at my starting point, and the final one here. I can just cut it now. I like to get it under one of these tighter places, so it just has a little bit of a tighter hold, and you can even do a small knot if you want out here. Cut it off. This way it looks fairly nice. You can experiment with how you want to do this final end, but the back and forth will definitely help you keep it tight. I'll show you on the final one as well. It's my final string is a little bit longer, so it makes it a little bit easier to do the sewing in. So again, I put the string between my fingers and just wiggle it a little bit, and then we're through. I'm going to get through here. Instead of taking the next one up there, I just go back. Same way I came. This is how I was taught to weave in my ends. A lot of people really don't like weaving in ends. For me, it's actually a little bit therapeutic. It's such a slow and meddlesome thing, but it's still a necessary thing for the ends to look nice. A nice end. Bring it back the scissors and snip. All I have to do now is I have a few of these like just loose ends, but I know that it has been sewn in or crocheted in, so I pull it a little bit, cut it, and it'll climb in a little bit. So I'm just going to be looking through. I have another one over here. Cutting it. There we go. I think that is just about it. Now I have finished my SameYou tea towel with a little strap to hang it up. Thank you for watching.